The cargo ship New Seoul drifted through empty space like a metal whale carrying dreams. Inside its belly, 3,000 Korean families slept in their cryopods, dreaming of a new world called Kepler 442b. They had left Earth 6 months ago, hoping to build fresh lives under alien suns. Captain Minitsu Lee stood on the bridge, drinking his morning coffee and watching the stars. At 55, he was too old for adventures, but too stubborn to quit. His weathered hands held the warm cup as he checked their course. Everything looked normal. Then the ship's computer started screaming warnings. "Captain!" shouted Navigator Park Ji-ho from his station. "Unknown vessel approaching fast." Lee set down his coffee and moved to the main screen. What he saw made his blood freeze. A massive ship hung in space before them, 3 times bigger than the New Seoul. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of blue crystal. Strange lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. "Communications incoming," reported Officer Kim Hae-jin from her post. She was young, maybe 25, with nervous hands that shook as she worked. They're speaking to us." The alien voice came through the speakers, cold and sharp like breaking glass. The translation software struggled to keep up. "Primitive vessel. You will stop your engines. You will prepare for boarding. Your ship and cargo will be examined. Resistance will result in destruction." Lee felt his jaw tighten. In 30 years of space travel, nobody had ever talked to him like that. "Send a reply. Tell them we're peaceful colonists heading to an unclaimed world. We have no weapons and mean no harm." Hae-jin worked her console, then looked up with fear in her eyes. "Captain, they're not responding to our message. They're moving closer." Through the view screen, Lee watched the crystal ship approach. He could see smaller ships launching from its belly like angry wasps from a nest. His mind raced. 3,000 sleeping families. Men, women, children who had trusted him to keep them safe. "Get me Dr. Park from the science section," he ordered. Dr. Park Sung-minute arrived on the bridge 5 minutes later, still wearing his lab coat. The older scientist studied the alien ship with curious eyes. "Remarkable," he whispered. "Their technology appears centuries ahead of ours." "Can we fight them?" Lee asked bluntly. Dr. Park looked shocked. "Captain, they have weapons we can barely understand. Our ship is designed for cargo transport, not combat." "That wasn't my question. Can we fight them?" The doctor thought for a moment. "We have mining lasers for asteroid work. Construction equipment. Industrial charges for excavation work." He paused. "Not weapons, but they could be," Lee finished. The first alien boarding ship attached to their hull with a sound like thunder. Lee felt the New Seoul shake as cutting tools began slicing through the outer airlock. "All hands, emergency stations," Lee announced over the ship's speakers. "This is not a drill. Unknown hostiles are boarding our vessel. All colonists remain in cryo-sleep. All crew report to defensive positions." Engineer Do-hyun's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, what defensive positions? We're a cargo ship." "Make some up," Lee replied grimly. The aliens came through the hull like ghosts made of blue light. They were tall, thin creatures that seemed to be made of the same crystal as their ship. They moved with perfect coordination, their weapons humming with deadly energy. What they didn't expect was Chief Engineer Do-hyun waiting for them with a plasma cutter in one hand and a mining charge in the other. "Welcome to human space," Do-hyun said, and triggered the explosive. The blast tore through the boarding party and damaged their ship. But more aliens kept coming. They poured through the breach like water through a broken dam. Security Chief Kim Yoo-jin had been a soldier before joining the colony ship. She organized the crew into fighting units using whatever they could find. Welding torches became flamethrowers. Construction mechs became battle suits. The ship's gravity system became a weapon when they figured out how to make the aliens too heavy to move. The battle raged through the ship's corridors for 2 hours. The aliens had better weapons and armor, but they fought like machines following a program. The humans fought like cornered animals protecting their cubs. Dr. Park used his knowledge of physics to turn the ship's systems into traps. Hae-jin hacked into the alien boarding ships and crashed 2 of them into each other. Even the ship's cook, elderly Mrs. Song, helped by throwing boiling oil from the kitchen. When the aliens finally retreated to their crystal ship, they left behind damaged equipment and many of their dead. The New Seoul was badly hurt, with holes in its hull and systems failing, but it was still flying. Captain Lee stood on his bridge, looking at the alien ship through the cracked view screen. His uniform was torn and bloody, but his eyes burned with anger. "Send them a message," he told Hae-jin. "What should I say, Captain?" Lee thought about his sleeping colonists. About the families who had trusted him. About the children who deserved to grow up free. Tell them they picked the wrong species to mess with. The crystal ship hung in space for several long minutes. Lee could almost feel the aliens inside, trying to understand what had happened. They had expected easy victory over primitive creatures. Instead, they had found something they had never encountered before, humans who refused to surrender. Finally, the alien ship turned and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the damaged new soul alone among the stars. Dr. Park looked at the wreckage around them. "Captain, they'll be back. Probably with more ships." Lee nodded slowly. "Then we better get home and warn everyone." He looked at his crew, these ordinary people who had just fought impossible odds and won. It seems like humanity just made some very dangerous enemies. As the new soul limped toward Earth with its precious cargo of dreamers, none of them knew they had just fired the first shot in a war that would change the galaxy forever. 6 months after the new soul limped back to Earth, President Kim Tae-min sat in the most important meeting of his life. The emergency session of the United Nations had been going for 3 days. Leaders from every major country on Earth crowded around the circular table, their faces grim with worry. Captain Minazu Lee stood at the center of the room, still wearing his space captain's uniform. His left arm was in a sling from the alien attack, but his voice was strong and clear. "They treated us like animals," Lee said, his words echoing in the silent chamber. "Not enemies. Not threats. Just things to be collected and studied. When we fought back, they seemed surprised." The President of the United States leaned forward. "How many casualties, Captain?" 4 to 7 dead. Over 100 wounded. "But sir, that's not the worst part." Lee's jaw tightened. "They were testing us. This was just the beginning." Dr. Park Hae-jin, now promoted to chief xenobiologist for the Earth Defense Council, stepped up to the holographic display. Her young face looked older now, marked by months of studying alien technology. "We've analyzed every piece of debris from their ships," she reported. "Their technology is at least 300 years ahead of ours. Their weapons, their armor, their ships, everything is superior to what we have." A murmur of fear rippled through the assembly. The Russian representative spoke up. "Then how did you survive?" Dr. Park smiled grimly. "Because they fight like a computer program. Every move they made was predictable. They've never faced an enemy that improvises." General Park So-young of the Korean Space Defense Force stood up. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like flint. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've spent 30 years preparing for war. But never like this. We need to unite every nation, every military, every scientist on Earth. We need the Terran Defense Coalition, and we need it now." The vote was unanimous. Within weeks, the transformation began. Shipyards that had built peaceful cargo vessels started producing warships. Mining companies turned their asteroid operations into weapon testing grounds. Universities across the globe cancelled regular classes and focused on military research. In Seoul, engineer Do Hyun worked with a team of the world's best minds to turn industrial equipment into weapons of war. "If they want to fight machines with machines," he muttered, welding armor plating onto a converted mining ship, "we'll show them what human creativity looks like." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, something strange was happening aboard the Zephyrian research vessel Dominance. Chief Researcher Mortai stared at the human prisoners through the energy barrier, his crystalline head tilting with confusion. The creatures should have been broken by now. Most species, when captured and studied, became either cooperative or completely shut down with fear. These humans just kept getting more dangerous. Sergeant Kim Yoo-jin, the security chief from the New Seoul, had been a prisoner for 4 months. In that time, she had attempted 7 different escape plans. Each one was more clever than the last. "Fascinating," Mortai noted to his assistant. "Watch this." They had given the humans basic food containers and simple clothing. Yoo-jin had somehow turned the metal food dishes into cutting tools, woven the clothing fibers into rope, and figured out how to short-circuit the energy barrier using static electricity from rubbing the fabric together. She failed, of course, Mortai continued, but look at the complexity of her plan. Most species use the same escape method repeatedly until they give up. These humans learn from each failure and try something completely different. The assistant, a younger Zephyrian named Veltar, looked nervous. "Should we report this to High Command?" Mortai activated his recording device. "Report begins. Human subject Yoo-jin, captured day 112. Unlike all previously studied species, humans appear to become more creative and resourceful when under stress. Their neural activity increases in regions associated with problem-solving when faced with danger. He paused, watching Eugen teach the other human prisoners how to make weapons from their bedding. Most species have a fear response that makes them submit to authority. Humans seem to have the opposite reaction. Threat activates aggression and innovation simultaneously. They literally become more dangerous when threatened. Back on Earth, the warnings were proving true. Admiral Lee Jinwoo, Captain Lee's younger brother, had been put in charge of the new Terran fleet. He was a submarine commander who had never fought in space, but he understood something about warfare that the aliens didn't. "They're coming back," he told the assembled fleet commanders during a strategy meeting in the underground bunkers of Seoul. "Our intelligence suggests they're preparing a much larger force." Commander Park Sung-ho, formerly a civilian asteroid miner, now captained the converted warship Incheon. "How do we fight ships that are centuries ahead of ours?" Admiral Lee smiled coldly. "We don't fight their ships. We fight them." He pointed to the tactical display. "They're used to civilized warfare. Predictable battles with rules and honor. We're going to give them something they've never seen before." The plan that emerged from those meetings would have horrified any military academy. It involved ramming attacks, jury-rigged explosives, psychological warfare, and tactics that broke every rule of civilized combat. "It's not pretty," admitted Dr. Park, now working on weapons development. "But pretty doesn't win wars against superior enemies." As Earth's new fleet took shape, intercepted alien communications revealed the truth. The Zephyrians had conquered 4 to 7 different species across the galaxy. Each conquest had followed the same pattern: demonstrate superior force, demand submission, destroy resistance. None of their previous enemies had ever hit back. President Kim looked out at the construction sites scattered across Earth's orbital space. Hundreds of ships were being built, each one designed not for exploration or trade, but for war. "They wanted to collect us like specimens," he said quietly to his aide. "They're about to learn that some specimens bite back." Above them, Earth's first battle fleet prepared for humanity's counterattack. The aliens had made their choice 6 months ago when they attacked sleeping colonists. Now they were about to discover what happened when you woke up the wrong species. 2 years after the attack on the New Sol, 3 Zephyrian military outposts received the same message at exactly the same time. The transmission came in perfect Zephyrian language, which should have been impossible for the primitive humans to master. "This is Admiral Lee Jinwoo of the Terran Defense Fleet. You attacked our people. You made a mistake. Now you pay for it." At Outpost Kethmore, War Commander Zexhai laughed when he heard the message. His station controlled an entire star system and had weapons that could destroy planets. What could a few primitive creatures possibly do to him? He stopped laughing when his sensors detected 30 human ships approaching at attack speed. "Impossible," he muttered, studying the readings. "Their ships are moving too fast. They'll burn up their engines." What Zexhai didn't understand was that the humans didn't care if their engines burned out. They had built their ships for one purpose: to reach the enemy and hurt them as badly as possible. The lead ship was the Incheon, commanded by Park Sung-ho. Once, he had been a simple asteroid miner. Now he was captain of what humans called a ram ship, a converted mining vessel covered in thick armor and loaded with explosives. "All hands, prepare for impact," Park announced to his crew as they rushed toward the Zephyrian station. "Remember, we're not trying to win pretty. We're trying to win." The Zephyrian defense systems fired plasma beams that could melt normal ships in seconds. The Incheon's armor glowed red-hot, but it kept coming. Park had learned something during his years mining asteroids: sometimes you had to hit things very, very hard to break them open. The Incheon smashed through the station's shields like a hammer through glass. As it punched deep into the station's hull, Park smiled grimly and pressed the button that released his cargo. 200 Korean Marines poured out of the ship's belly, led by Colonel Oh Min-ho. They carried weapons that looked primitive compared to Zephyrian plasma guns, explosive charges, welding torches, and shotguns loaded with metal fragments. But in the narrow corridors of the station, primitive worked better than advanced. The Zephyrians had trained for elegant space battles between fleets. They had never faced soldiers who fought like cornered animals in tight spaces. Within an hour, Outpost Kethmore belonged to humanity. At Outpost Velshore, Captain Song Hee-young took a completely different approach. Her ship, the Busan, didn't attack the station at all. Instead, it began broadcasting on every frequency the aliens used. "Attention all species in the Velshore system," her message went out in 17 different alien languages. "This is Captain Song of the human fleet. We know you are slaves to the Zephyrian Empire. We offer you freedom." Song had spent months working with Dr. Park Hyjin to crack Zephyrian communication codes. What they found shocked them: intercepted messages showing how brutally the Zephyrians treated the species they had conquered. "Your masters fear you," Song continued her broadcast. "That's why they keep you weak and divided. But humans believe in something different. We believe that every thinking being deserves to be free." The effect was immediate. On 3 different worlds in the system, slave rebellions began. The Zephyrian garrison found themselves fighting not just human ships, but their own former slaves. The third attack, at Outpost Zonkul, was led by Major Kim Dongsu. He had studied everything the humans had learned about Zephyrian psychology and turned it into a weapon. The assault began with something the aliens had never experienced: psychological warfare designed specifically for their species. Human ships broadcast sounds that the captured researchers had discovered caused panic in Zephyrian minds, deep bass frequencies that made their crystalline bodies vibrate painfully. Then came the music. Death metal. War drums. Sounds of human rage and defiance played at volumes that made the aliens' sensitive hearing feel like it was being attacked. "What is that horrible noise?" demanded Station Commander Morvek, clutching his head as the human sounds poured through his ship's speakers. His communications officer, trembling with pain, managed to report, "Sir, they are boarding us. But they are not using normal tactics." The humans came through the airlocks wearing masks painted like skulls and carrying weapons that sprayed fire. They shouted in their harsh language and moved like demons from nightmare. The Zephyrians, creatures who valued order and calm above all else, broke and ran. Major Kim had learned something important about the enemy: they were used to civilized warfare. When faced with humans who fought like barbarians, their ordered minds simply couldn't cope. When the 3 simultaneous attacks ended, the galaxy had learned something new. The primitive humans had destroyed or captured 3 major Zephyrian installations using tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. War Commander Vexhai, now promoted to Supreme Military Advisor after the disasters, stood before the Zephyrian High Command with terrible news. "They don't fight wars," he reported, his crystalline skin flickering with stress patterns. "They solve problems. Every strategy we use, they counter within days. Every weapon we deploy, they find a way around. We are not fighting soldiers. We are fighting evolution in real time." High Commander Zaveth, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, listened to the report with growing anger. "You are telling me that primitive creatures armed with mining equipment have defeated our finest military installations?" "Yes, sir. But it's worse than that." Vexhai activated a holographic display showing intercepted human communications. "They are spreading rebellion throughout our empire. 17 slave species have already joined their cause." The display showed human advisors working with alien rebels, teaching them guerrilla warfare tactics. Species that had been conquered for centuries were suddenly learning that their masters could be defeated. "How is this possible?" Zaveth demanded. Vexhai's report was simple but terrifying: "They give hope to the hopeless, sir. And hope is the most dangerous weapon in the universe." Across the galaxy, the message was spreading on every frequency: humanity had struck back, and won. The Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 4 to 7 worlds, had been blooded by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. The war was just beginning, but already the balance of power was shifting. The humans had taught the galaxy a simple lesson: sometimes the underdog bites back. The rebellion spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On 30 different worlds, species that had been slaves for hundreds of years suddenly found themselves with human military advisors teaching them how to fight back. On Veltorian Prime, Resistance leader Kalmesh crouched in an abandoned factory with Colonel Park Ji-1, planning their next strike against the Zephyrian supply depot. Kalmesh was a tall, green-skinned creature with 4 arms and large, intelligent eyes. "Your people think differently than any species we've met," Kalmesh said, watching the human colonel mark targets on a hand-drawn map. "You see victory where others see only death." Colonel Park smiled grimly. "My grandmother used to say, if you're going to lose anyway, make sure you take some of them with you. Turns out, if you fight hard enough, sometimes you don't lose at all." The plan they developed would have horrified any military academy. They were going to attack the depot using nothing but civilian transport trucks, farm equipment, and homemade explosives. But it worked. The Zephyrians, expecting traditional military assault, were completely unprepared for enemies who looked like farmers and fought like demons. Similar scenes played out across the empire. Human advisors taught alien rebels that warfare didn't have to be civilized. Sometimes, the only way to beat a superior enemy was to fight dirty. High Commander Zarveth watched the reports flood in from across his empire and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. In 6 months, the humans had turned his orderly conquest of the galaxy into chaos. Enough, he declared to his war council. If these creatures want to play at war, we will show them what real power looks like. The order went out to 3 Zephyrian planet-killer ships: destroy the human colonies. All of them. Admiral Kim Eun-ji was commanding the human deep space fleet when the first attack came. She watched through tears as New Jeju, humanity's second-largest colony world, was turned into a ball of molten rock in less than 10 minutes. 50,000 people died in that attack. Farmers, teachers, children who had never even seen a Zephyrian ship. They were killed simply to send a message to Earth. The message was clear: surrender or watch your colonies burn. The human response came not from Earth's government, but from Admiral Kim herself. She broadcast on every frequency the galaxy used, her voice cold with rage. Message received, she said, staring directly into the camera. Our turn. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this escalation. Deep in the hidden laboratories of captured outpost Kethmore, Dr. Chang Subin had been working on something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Chang was a small, quiet woman who had spent her life studying computer systems. Before the war, she had designed peaceful programs to help ships navigate through space. Now she was humanity's secret weapon. It's not a bomb, she explained to Admiral Kim during their encrypted video call. It's a virus. But not the kind that attacks living things. This attacks their computer systems. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. Once it infected a Zephyrian computer network, it would spread to every connected system. But it wouldn't destroy anything. Instead, it would do something much worse: it would turn their own planet-killer weapons against them. Every time they try to fire one of those weapons, Dr. Chang continued, the virus will redirect the targeting system. Instead of hitting our worlds, they'll hit empty space. Or better yet, their own ships. Getting the virus into the Zephyrian network required a suicide mission. Commander Yo Jae-sung volunteered to lead it. He was a pilot who had lost his family on New Jeju and wanted revenge. You don't have to do this, Admiral Kim told him before the mission launched. We can find another way. Commander Yo shook his head. Those monsters killed children, Admiral. Someone has to make them pay. Yo led a squadron of 12 modified fighters deep into Zephyrian space. Their mission was simple: get close enough to the enemy command network to upload Dr. Chang's virus, then get out alive. Only 3 of the fighters made it to the target. Only 1 made it back. But it was enough. The virus spread through the Zephyrian computer network like lightning. Within hours, every planet-killer weapon in their fleet had been infected. When High Commander Zarveth ordered the destruction of Earth itself, something unexpected happened. The weapon fired perfectly. The targeting system worked flawlessly. The planet-killer beam lanced out across space with enough power to crack a world in half. It missed Earth completely and vaporized a Zephyrian supply depot instead. What happened? Zarveth screamed at his technicians. Why did our weapon attack our own forces? The answer came from Dr. Chang's virus, hidden deep in their systems. But the virus had done more than just redirect their weapons. It had also downloaded and transmitted something precious to the human fleet: the location of every Zephyrian military installation in the galaxy. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the intelligence windfall that had just appeared on her screens. Hundreds of secret bases, supply depots, and command centers. All of them suddenly visible to human forces. Attention all ships, she announced to the assembled human and allied fleet. We now know where every enemy installation is located. We know their defenses, their supply lines, and their weaknesses. She paused, thinking of the children who had died on New Jeju. Of the families torn apart by Zephyrian cruelty. Of the enslaved species crying out for freedom. They wanted to show us what real power looks like, Admiral Kim said, her voice carrying across the comm to every ship in the fleet. Let's show them what human power looks like. All ships, prepare for simultaneous attack on every Zephyrian position in this sector. The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. And for the first time since the war started, humanity held all the cards. The Zephyrians had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to terrorize a species that specialized in turning terror into rage, and rage into victory. The final battle took place above Zeph-Hai Prime, the ancient homeworld of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Lee Jin-woo commanded the largest fleet in human history, over 400 ships crewed by humans and their alien allies. But the battle that ended the war wasn't won by superior firepower or clever tactics. It was won by something the galaxy had never seen before, humans turning their greatest enemies into friends. As the massive fleets faced each other in the darkness of space, President Kim Tae-min sat in a broadcast studio on Earth, preparing to do something unprecedented. Instead of talking to his own people, he was going to speak directly to the Zephyrian population on their homeworld below. Citizens of Zephy Prime, his words were translated into perfect Zephyrian by Dr. Park Hae-jin, now humanity's chief diplomat. Your leaders told you that you were the superior species in the galaxy. They told you that conquest was your right. On the planet's surface, millions of Zephyrians watched the human president on their communication screens. They had been told that humans were primitive animals, barely capable of thought. Yet here was one speaking their language better than many of their own people. But empires built on the suffering of others always fall, President Kim continued. We didn't come here to conquer you. We came here to free you from leaders who see you as tools for war instead of people with dreams and hopes. Above the planet, the space battle raged between the fleets. Admiral Lee had learned from every previous engagement. His ships didn't fight like a traditional navy. They fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating attacks and covering each other's weaknesses. Captain Park Hyun-woo, commanding the converted battleship Seoul, used his ship's mining equipment to disable a Zephyrian cruiser instead of destroying it. Remember, he told his crew, we're not here to kill everyone. We're here to stop a war. The turning point came when Zephyrian Captain Velkors, commanding the warship Crystal Dawn, received a transmission from his own homeworld. His younger brother, a civilian engineer, was broadcasting from the planet's surface. Brother, you need to hear what the humans are saying, the message came through. They're not monsters. They're offering us peace. Real peace, not the false peace our empire creates through fear. Captain Velkors had fought in 17 campaigns for the empire. He had seen worlds burned and species enslaved. For the first time, he began to wonder if everything he had been told was a lie. When Admiral Lee's fleet surrounded the remaining Zephyrian ships, something unprecedented happened. Instead of demanding surrender, Admiral Lee opened a communication channel to every enemy captain. This is Admiral Lee Jin-woo of the Terran Defense Fleet, he said calmly. Your empire is finished. Your planet killers are useless. Your supply lines are cut. You have two choices, fight to the death for leaders who see you as expendable, or help us build something better. Captain Velkors was the first to lower his weapons. Within an hour, 2/3 of the Zephyrian fleet had joined him. The revolution that followed on the planet below was swift but not violent. The people simply stopped obeying their government. High Commander Zaveth, the architect of galactic conquest, found himself alone in his command center as his own people walked away from centuries of military rule. 6 months later, representatives from 63 different species gathered at Harmony Station, a massive space installation built cooperatively by humans and their new allies. The station orbited a neutral star, belonging to no single species but governed by all of them. Ambassador Song Minute-jun, formerly a communications officer on the New Seoul, stood before the assembled delegates to officially establish the Galactic Cooperation Accord. He was young for such an important job, but he had learned alien languages faster than anyone thought possible. The rules of our new alliance are simple, he announced, his words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Live and let live. Trade freely and fairly. Settle disputes through talking, not fighting. And if someone decides they want to play conqueror again. He gestured to a holographic display showing the wreckage of the once mighty Zephyrian war fleet. Well, you've all seen what happens to bullies in our part of the galaxy. The Galactic Cooperation Accord's charter was written in every member language, but its most important rule was stated in simple human English: don't start fights, but always finish them. The new galactic government wasn't an empire. It had no emperor, no supreme ruler, no capital world. Instead, it was a council where every species had an equal voice. Humans, despite winning the war, took only one seat at the table, the same as everyone else. Former War Commander Vexhai, now serving as the Zephyrian representative, often found himself working alongside the humans he had once fought. Your species continues to surprise me, he told Ambassador Song during a break between sessions. You had the power to rule the galaxy, but you chose to share it instead. Song smiled. My grandfather used to say that the best leaders are the ones who don't want to be leaders. Power should serve people, not the other way around. 1 year after the Accord was established, a human exploration ship encountered a new species at the edge of known space. The Kethai were aggressive, technologically advanced, and immediately demanded that the inferior races submit to their authority. Captain Park Minute-seo, great-nephew of the original General Park, listened to their ultimatum with the patience of someone who had heard it all before. His mixed-species crew, humans, former Zephyrians, Veltorians, and others, stood ready behind him. "I appreciate your enthusiasm," Captain Park replied politely to the alien commander, while his crew quietly prepared their weapons. "But I should probably explain how things work in this part of the galaxy now." He paused, making sure the translation systems caught every word. "We have what we call the universal rule. You're welcome to join our community as equals and friends. But if you choose to cause trouble instead..." His smile was friendly but his eyes were steel. "Well, you'll find out what happens to troublemakers." The Kethai commander studied the calm, confident faces staring back at him. These creatures looked peaceful, but there was something in their manner that suggested they had seen war and won it. "Perhaps," the alien said carefully, "we should discuss terms for peaceful contact." Captain Park's smile became genuinely warm. "Now you're learning. Welcome to the neighborhood."